Hello.
You're live.
All right.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay.
Do I have YouTube?
Sure.
All right, George. Good luck.
All right. Hey. Yeah. No, my bag's there. All right. Howdy. Hi. Welcome. Welcome. Good afternoon. Right. Yes. Hope you guys are having a good howdy hack. I'm giving a presentation on calling web APIs with Python. I'm George, by the way. I'm in Datathon. I definitely didn't prepare this presentation like yesterday, so bear with me. So let's start off. Well, actually, first, before anything, how many of y'all know Python in general? Raise your hand. Oh, thank God. Okay. How many of y'all know what an API is? Okay. All right. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. All right. Great. Yeah. Application programming interface. This is from Wikipedia because I actually didn't know how to describe it in words. It's a software interface offering a service to other pieces of software. What does that mean to you? Nothing? All right. Basically, it's just like you have a server that can have a bunch of functions, and you can have other pieces of code call that to do things for you, which is great because if you think about everything out there is basically just taking a bunch of data from a bunch of different APIs and making something new of it. So believe it or not, by the end of HowdyHack, hopefully if you make a project, which I hope everyone in here will at least do something, you would have made at least 80% of what websites exist out there right now. So yeah, that's great. APIs are awesome. So let's talk about like how the web works. So basically, in every transaction, there's this. Oh, I touched the cable. Any transaction, there's a client and a server. So your client could be your phone, a web browser, other servers. It doesn't really matter. The client says like, "Hey, I want something." That's called a HTTP request. It's like, I want something, right? And so then the server will respond with a response saying, oh, here it is. So that's how it goes. That's the basic interaction between a client and a server. But your client doesn't have to be a phone. It could be anything else. So in our case, we're going to see how it works with Python. So yeah, let's talk about some examples of requests and responses. So here's a sample request. That first line over there, that get, that's like the action you want to do. Like I want to get something. All right, so I'm getting that web page hello.htm. So that's called the path. So like if you went to google.com/abc, abc is what goes over there. Under it, these lines over here, these are called headers. There's just extra metadata that your client will send, being like, oh, this is the type of browser, this is the website I want, all sorts of things like that. Here's an example response. This first line is like the server's status. So like the server's like, oh, this is a OK request. I did it correctly. That's what the 200 means. If you ever seen the 404 not found, that 404 is actually status code. So yeah. The server also sends the body. So that's like, that could be anything. That could be HTML. It could be like images, JavaScript, CSS. In the case of APIs, usually that's JSON or XML. And this header right here, oh, I went too far. This header right here, the content type is basically the server saying the body has this content type. So obviously in this case, that's HTML. So the content type is HTML. So let's talk about specifically with Python. So what do you need? Well, first you need Python. You can download it on that website. Then you need the request Python library. You can install it with pip or conda. Python's dependency stuff is really bad, but so this might actually take some time. But yeah, just install it with pip or conda, and you'll be good. And then optionally, you should consider using a HTTP client. These are just like apps you can download, which let you test APIs. So Postman, Insomnia. I like Insomnia a lot. Not the sleeping disorder, the web app. Anyways, so let's just jump into it. Okay, so this is a sample script. Let me make that bigger. Oh, that's a little. Okay, so hopefully you can see that.
Can we turn the lights off?
Yeah.
Aniket, can you turn the lights off?
It's the lights on that side, sorry. They're above red.
Oh no, that's a blind. That's not a light. Okay, well, while they figure that out, basically we have this is like a starting script. It's literally 5 lines, and this is already a client right here. Actually, before I get to that, I should have probably talked about what we're doing. Kind of messed that up. So I found this API on the internet called the PokéAPI. It's just a API with Pokemon. It's great. You can actually like get all sorts of information on different Pokemon and stuff, and even query them. Let me see if I can open this link. Their website's a little terrible, but yeah. So, oh man, just a bunch of Pokemon. Look at that. So we're gonna use this as sort of a example. This, by the way, it doesn't like look like this normally to your browser. I have a Chrome extension that like prettifies the response from the server. But anyway, so I copied and pasted that URL, right? It's the same thing. It's the PokéAPI v2/Pokemon. Basically, you can think of this as I'm calling the function from the Pokemon API people saying like, hey, give me a list of Pokemon, give me 20 of them, starting at index 0. So they have like this array of Pokemon, this massive one. And I'm just saying, okay, start at index 0, give me 20. So that's what these two sort of variables mean. And if I run it, oh shit, wrong one. Oh, sorry. We're all adults here, all right? Okay, anyway, so I run it. You can see, oh, we got a response 200. That worked. But obviously, we probably want to see more than that. So let's actually like look at it. So it's pretty good practice to check like, okay, is the status code good, which is 200. Once we do that, we can just get like the data from it. So the PokéAPI responds in JSON, so I'm just going to say, hey, parse that body as JSON and return it to me. And now if I print out data and run it, oh man, we got basically the same thing I just showed you on Chrome, except in a lot less pretty fashion. So like we got the total, I guess there's, oh, I didn't know there's 1,000 Pokemon. Okay, we got the total 1,000 Pokemon and the first 20 of them here, which is pretty neat. So let's see. So I think the next step would be to, let's see, let me fast forward here. I'm cheating. Okay, so one thing you can do, this is basically the same code from before. We have this data variable. This is a dictionary in Python, if you don't know what that is. Basically, think of a real dictionary, right? It has words and definitions. So this is like a more generalized version, right? So if I was to make a real dictionary, like the Webster's dictionary in Python, it'd be like the key would be the word and the value would be the definition. So in this case, the key would be just some variable name, and then the value could be anything. So let me just, I guess, make that more obvious. So the key is results, and then a value would be this array of more dictionaries which have more attributes to it. So that's kind of how you navigate with APIs. So like if one really cool thing you can do with pandas is you can actually load the data from a JSON response from the server into a data frame. And a data frame, if you don't know, is just like this table, which you can do all sorts of operations like query, join multiple tables together. Basically anything you can do in Excel or SQL, you can do in pandas, which is really nice. So if I actually run it again, I can show you how that table kind of looks like. So that's a lot easier to read, right? We got the index of the Pokemon, their name, and then the URL, I guess, which isn't too useful for us, but that's something. So if only there was like an organization or something that let you, I don't know, use these data frames or tables to do like data science or machine learning. Maybe an event where you spend like 24 hours hacking together projects. Oh wait, there is. It's called TAMA Datathon. It's on October 16th and 17th. It's a machine learning and data science hackathon. That machine learning and data science is definitely the future. Even if you're not like a data science per se, there's a lot of engineering efforts needed to even get like going through all sorts of data, right? The Tesla AI Day was like a couple weeks ago, and they had a whole 40-minute talk about how they had to deal with the terabytes of data they have to go through from the cars, and they have this whole engineering team for it. So don't worry, your jobs are fine. So it's fine. There's a lot of cool stuff there. So if you have any interest in it, which I think most of you should, I would go do TAMA Datathon. Yeah, really appreciate it. You can apply at tamadatathon.com. All right, enough ads. Oh, I went too far. Oops. Okay. Okay, cool. So let me actually make sure I'm in the right spot. Oh, I went really far actually. Curse. Oh, TAMA Datathon again. Okay. Yeah, that was just subtle brainwashing to get you to join TAMA Datathon. Okay, so this is pretty cool and all, but we haven't really done anything too useful or crazy. So let's see. So let's put these into functions. Do you guys know what a function is, right? Most of it? Okay, cool. So all I did is I just sort of wrapped what we just did. I got rid of the pandas part because that was literally just an ad for Datathon. Basically, I wrapped what we just did into a function. So later I can call this and say like, oh, I want Pokemon. I would just have to like call this function, give it the offset and limit, and then I'd be able to get the data back here. I actually also did, there's actually a couple more things I did here. So I'm actually looping through each of the Pokemon in the results. So this is like an example of how you can use the dictionary, right? It's like I'm saying, give me the array with the key results. So that's an array. And then enumerate lets us have the index of that element in the array as well as the value. And then for each item, I'm basically getting the URL of the Pokemon. I'm doing some really jank stuff to get the ID part specifically because they don't return that for some reason. So the ID would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then I noticed that the images for each of these Pokemon are just on this GitHub. So I just literally paste their ID there at the end. And there we go, we got the image for the Pokemon. I did it like this because in order to actually get that image, you would have to do another API call for the details of that specific Pokemon, which would be like too much time, right? You don't want to do too many API calls because each API call takes like probably a second or two. So if you're looping through like hundreds of Pokemon and then having to wait another second to get the details of each Pokemon, that would take a long time. So yeah, it's just some hacks to get around that. There's actually a bug here. Do you guys see what could potentially be a problem? Anyone? All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm returning way too early here. I'm returning in the for loop. So I actually made this bug last night, and I didn't realize it until a couple hours ago. So just do that. Basically what that did before, if you wanted to know, I just modified the first element of the Pokemon array, and then I returned, which is obviously not what we want to do. Okay, so yeah, I made it a function, and then I can print the result of that, which basically is the same as before. So I won't go too far into that. And then I also, oh shoot. Oops. And then, so another part of the API, so we just worked with like the fetching of the, I don't know how to make that bigger, sorry. Fetching of like the list of Pokemon, but there's another part of the API that lets you get the details. So if you go to, this is what I was talking about with the image thing. So if I go to slash Pokemon, and then I can add a variable after it. So like if I wanted the Pokemon with the ID 12, I don't know what that is. Let's find out. You get all sorts of stuff. Oh, it's Butterfree. All right, cool. Wait, maybe it is. I don't know. They're real nerds. they, they really like put all sorts of stuff on this. It's like actually crazy. I'm like, oh, look at my scroll bar. It's tiny. Oh, it's cropped, but like I can scroll for years. It just keeps going. All sorts of stuff. Cool API. Really like. Okay, so this is just another example. We're just using requests again, sending a GET request to get the details of the Pokemon. Let's see, what did I do in part 5? Oh, okay. So these are all cool and all, but I'm more of a visual guy. So we're actually gonna make like a little small web app, right? Because what's the point of using the terminal, right? So we're gonna use a framework called Flask. So Flask is a is a web server framework. So you can install it with pip or conda as per usual. It's probably the simplest web server framework. Don't use Django, please. It's great. So this lets us sort of, you know how we're now instead of being the client, we're going to be a server, and instead of serving API responses, we're serving web pages. So that's going to be really fun. So just to sort of look at code here, I just imported Flask. I made a little Flask app, and then this route is basically saying, okay, on slash return this string, and this is actually like a little string of HTML, right? It says HowdyHack. So if I run this, you can see we get a URL down here, right? So later there's a workshop on deploying your application. So later you can make this URL like publicly accessible on the web. So check that one out. But if I click on it, yeah, you get HowdyHack or HowdyHack. HowdyHack. Okay. So that's pretty neat. But we can probably do more than just saying hello world, right? So let's use the functions we just made, right? So I'm going to import. So I was working off this scratch.py. That's where these functions are. So you can actually just import scratch, right? And then here we can just change it. So like we want get the results is the scratch dot get Pokemon, and then let's just say let's get the first 20 of them. And then if I want the actual Pokemon list, browse result, results. So what I just did there, do you guys kind of get what I did? So if I go back to the original API, right, I'm just basically getting the results, right, which is this array, and putting it in this variable called Pokemon lists. And then what I'll do is, okay, instead of rendering a string, we're going to use the Flask templating feature. This is basically a way to easily make like HTML pages without, messing with strings. So we're going to do render template, and then later I have to make this HTML file, and then I'm going to pass in the Pokemon list. But actually, I'm going to fast forward a little bit too. Let's see. So we have render template. We're passing in the Pokemon list. I just made a folder called templates, and then put index.html inside it. This file right here. Okay, let me actually move the terminal down. This file, it's a pretty basic HTML template. How many of y'all have worked with HTML? Great. Is that a question?
Yeah, what does Scratch do? The library?
Scratch isn't a library. That's literally the name of this file. Scratch.py. Yeah, I don't know why I named it. Okay, any other questions? No? All right. So this is the HTML template. I saw a lot of hands for HTML, so this should look pretty familiar. I just have like a little heading like, hey, here's some Pokemon. So this stuff is probably kind of weird. So this is a templating language called Jinja. I don't know how to pronounce it. Jinja. All right. This is what Flask uses by default, and it's pretty cool because you can like basically any variables you pass in here, right? Get are accessible here. So here I can do a for loop, right? Saying, oh, give me the for every Pokemon in this Pokemon list. Inside these like braces, I guess, this line will get duplicated for each Pokemon, right? So inside I have like a little list item. I'm using the image of the Pokemon and then the name. I'm just placing it here. These braces here are basically like print whatever's inside, print the variable what's inside, just plop it in there, right? So I'm just plopping in the image URL and I'm plopping in the name. So if I run that, and then I go to our web page, oh my god, we got a list of Pokemon and their images. Really fancy stuff, I know. So that's pretty great. What else do I have here? Okay, so first of all, a couple things to notice. These are only 20 of them. As already established, there's 1,000 of them. So it would be nice to have like a next and previous button, right? So how would we go about doing that? Well, I think I'll fast forward again. So, all right, so fast forward here, we're back at app.py. So we talked about like the offset and limit. Those are called query string parameters or URL search parameters, depending on who you ask. In Flask, this is how you can utilize them. So like basically, I'm getting the offset and the limit from the request, storing in these variables. Down here, I'm doing just a null check, basically saying like, oh, if they exist, do something, otherwise do another thing. So if they don't exist, I assume it's 0 for offset. Otherwise, I convert it to an integer. Same thing with limit. By default, I assume it's 20. Otherwise, I convert it to an integer. And then I just pass it to the same things we did before, right? Scratch.getPokemon. Pass in our new variables, offset and limit, which is cool. We get our list. We can render it. I'm also, wow, I actually pass in a lot of stuff here. In this return, right, in the render template, remember, you can like pass in a list of all these variables that you want to have accessible to your view, right? So I'm making the list accessible. I'm making the offset accessible, the limit. This is a pretty interesting thing, right? So remember in the API response, they actually have like these next and previous URLs, which is interesting, right? Because if you're on like offset 0, your previous is null, right? Which makes sense. You can't go negative on the index of the array. So I'm passing those in because it's really not useful for us because it has all this like PokéAPI, all this nonsense that we don't really care about. But it's useful to know like, oh, we've reached the end of the list. And I think it'll make more sense when I show you the template, right? So over here, I'm basically saying, oh, if the previous API URL, if that thing exists, if it's not none, then show that link. And then the link here basically links to, okay, / right, which is the path, right, of the existing page. And then we're adding the URL search parameters, right? So offset. So the new if you wanted to go previous, right, you would do offset minus the limit. So that is basically like if you were at index 20, if you wanted to go backwards by 20, you would subtract, right? Same thing with the next URL. It's the same sort of logic. But that's all you really need to do. Honestly, this is probably the the part I didn't explain the best, but so if you have any questions, we could talk afterwards or in the end. But now we got like a little next button, so like I can press next. Oh, and you can just page through all of it. You can see, notice up on the top, right? What's really happening is offset and limit is just being changed. Yeah, you can go front and back. Wow, crazy. So, all right, this is cool and all, but this isn't like using anything too special with Python, right? So before, we only have like 4 minutes, so I will just kind of get to the point. uh, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, but it could be way cooler because we're using like this whole Python ecosystem, and you can do a lot of like machine learning and stuff, right? So I found, oh man, I closed it. So there's something called TensorFlow Hub, which is a really great resource. If you're for your project and stuff, I would check this out if you want to have a fast way to do machine learning. Basically, it's a bunch of pre-trained models that run really well on low-end hardware, so it's fast. So I found one for style transfer, which lets you do cool things like stylize an image in the style of another image. So like, okay, here's the Golden Gate Bridge. You can style it like this wave, and you get that. Looks really interesting. So I was like, oh, that would be cool, right, to use. Uh, I thought of this at 10 in the morning. Probably not the best use of my time, but so here it is, bonus meme. All right. So, and the cool thing is they have like a notebook. They have just like sample code, so you can just copy paste their like code sample into your Flask app, and then you just basically can use it in your web server. I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but it's actually not too bad. Very usable. I think using it really makes using Python as a backend like pretty nice. So you'll notice not much has changed, but these are now links. And so with that style transfer API, I decided it'd be cool to become a Pokemon. All right. So what I'm gonna need from y'all is just choose a Pokemon for me. What do you think best suits me? Beedrill? Okay, sure. Beedrill it is. All right. Yeah, maybe. Let's see. Whatever. You know what? We'll just do. All right, great. Science. All right, I'm becoming Beedrill, guys. All right. And oh, beautiful. So yeah, you can get some nice cursed images. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I think. Oh wait, do another. You know what? Screw it. Why not?
Do you want the light?
Nah. Yeah, actually, does anyone else want to do it? All right, let's do it. You can choose your own Pokemon to be. It's a personal experience, so I understand that you'd have your own preference. Is this going to be a line to become a Pokemon?
You gotta find your spirit Pokemon, right?
Yeah,
It's your
and
spirit
and maybe we should turn the lights on now, but
Alright. So good lighting.
yeah,
Finally lighting.
yeah, go for it. Just
Look at the rat.
the rats.
Look at the rat tatted, bro.
Oh,
Alright, look at the rat. Alright, now I'm going red. Alright.
let's
see
find
what
out.
it does. Hey, it's got my eyes.
Yeah, I got
My son.
Yeah. All right. Well, so just to kind of recap, because I think we're kind of at time, we called an API from Python, modified the data it's returned. It's all dictionaries, just use keys and arrays. It's all good. We made a small website that shows a list of Pokemon, and we implemented pagination to let users actually see more than 20 Pokemon at a time. And actually, there's a 4, which is obviously this machine learning thing. But yeah, that's all I have. Thanks for coming. Appreciate. Thanks. Yeah. Source code. Yeah. Yeah. Right. GitHub plug. Yeah. Yeah. If you want to look at the code, that's the link. I don't know if I said that. Yeah.
There's this small thing I have a question about.
Sure. Yeah.
In your console, there's a timestamp of.
Yeah. Got it.
There's like a timestamp of some sort. It says 13 hours, 24 minutes.
Oh, that's just my terminal. It just says how long it's been active. I guess. Yeah. That's all it is. Yeah.
What's your favorite Pokemon? That was good. George, what's your favorite Pokemon?
Probably